We used to wander the lunar quarter like it was a game. Plastic domes, sales pitches, cheap mugs, stamped first gen citizen. Dorian made it all feel harmless, a dream we could shape together. But then the contracts came. Bright offices, clever suits, numbers that promised everything. They said it was common to place the bond under me alone. Dorian smiled, told me I was the smart one with risk models. So I signed, because wanting it, wanting us, felt bigger than any caution. The funny thing is, contracts don't feel like shackles. Not at first. They feel like doors. It didn't look like we were about to leave the planet. Two battered suitcases gaped open on our bed, one already swallowing neat stacks of thermal shirts and survey leggings, the other half filled with my old field instruments. It seemed like we were packing for a casual weekend, not the most permanent leap we'd ever made. Dorian stood by the closet, brow furrowed, shoulders hunched under the weight of my survey jackets. He sorted through them with the strange focus, like the right combination of worn canvas and reinforced seams might guarantee our success on Luna. These all smell like hydrocarbon sludge, he muttered finally, nose wrinkling. His voice had that lazy, amused cadence that always felt like a hand smoothing down my spine. Or maybe it's just the stench of your last 3 near-death contracts. Probably both, I said. I tried to match his tone, but my breath snagged. Just nerves, I told myself. He shot me a crooked grin, then laid each jacket across the bed, smoothing the sleeves with practiced flicks. You know, I ventured, softer than I meant to. I could have packed those. Not exactly my first deployment. He didn't look up right away. His eyes tracked the seams, a faint crease forming between his brows. Then he exhaled and flashed a grin that was almost boyish. Yeah, but you never fold things right. Your field lockers look like nests built by drunken crows. A startled laugh escaped me. I hooked 2 fingers through his belt loop, tugging until his warmth bled into me. You realize next time we do this, it'll be under a quarter of Earth gravity? You'll be chasing your precious neat stacks across the whole damn module. Worth it, he murmured, dipping his head until his forehead bumped mine. His lips twitched against my temple. As long as I'm chasing them with you. I closed my eyes, breathing him in. His skin still held the scent of sun-warmed concrete and old metal lifts. It grounded me more than any launch checklist. When I opened them, he was studying me with that half smile he wore when trying to memorize my face. The tiny scar near his lower lip lifted slightly. God, you look so serious, he teased, hands resting lightly at my shoulders. Is your brain cataloging packing statistics right now? Not statistics. Probabilities. I tried to keep it light, but a little edge slipped in. All the futures where this goes the way we planned. His thumbs started a slow rhythm near my neck. None of your doom models tonight. We're doing this together. That's the only branch I'm betting on. A shaky breath escaped me, half laugh, half confession. You're too good at overriding my caution. Perk of marrying a hyper-analytical genius, he said, dropping his voice to a playful hush. I get to be the fool who stops her from overthinking herself into paralysis. He nudged me back until my knees hit the mattress. Then he kissed me, slow and certain, one hand slipping into my hair. For a moment, everything went beautifully blank. There were no flight schedules, no debt bonds, no thin lunar air waiting to scrape our lungs. When he pulled back, his mouth curved into a soft, almost awed line. Tell me again how you're going to find us the perfect crater. The one that makes all those risk tables look like a joke. My cheeks flushed. I curled my fingers into his shirt. I'll find it, even if I have to map every regolith seam myself. He rested his forehead against mine, breath warm and unsteady. That's my brilliant star watcher. Behind him, the little ceramic fox he won me at a night market 2 years ago, tilted slightly by the lamp, glass eyes catching the glow from the street. It looked like it was eavesdropping. Dorian followed my glance. He's coming, right? I shook my head with a small smile. Too fragile for low gravity. Someone needs to guard the apartment. Lucky bastard, he said. His grin was easy, but something fragile flashed through his eyes before he tucked it behind humor again. Guess it's just me and your moth-eaten field gear off to new frontiers. I laughed, hooked my fingers into his belt, and pulled him down for another kiss. I tasted mint from the tea we'd shared, felt the faint tremor in his jaw that said he was as terrified as I was, but we were still doing it together. Right then, that was enough to chase every last doubt from the room. Our last nights on Earth bloomed wide and sweet, almost overripe, like fruit that should have been picked days ago. I felt it in the slow weight of twilight, the way dusk lingered on tower ledges, reluctant to slip away. We spent more evenings on our little balcony, two mismatched chairs wedged between the railing and half-dead planter boxes. Dorian would bring out cheap local wine, pretending it was rare. He always poured it with an elaborate flourish that made me snort into my glass. One evening he cradled his glass in both hands, elbows on his knees, eyes half-lidded as he watched the neon veins of the city. The wind kept ruffling his hair, and he didn't bother smoothing it. I loved that, how unguarded he let the world make him. You know what I don't want? His voice was low, almost conspiratorial. I tipped my head. Surprise me. Those grim metal hallways from the safety briefings, all featureless polymer and hazard placards. If I'm leaving Earth, I want to look out at something worth leaving for. His hand slid across the table. Our glasses nearly knocked. I curled my fingers around his, felt how cool his skin was in the night air. I want you to pick us somewhere breathtaking, he said, voice softening into something that curled warm under my ribs. Somewhere the engineers underestimated because math will never be poetry. That line cracked something helpless in me. I traced his knuckles with my thumb, memorizing the rough edges. I promise. I'll find us a spot so perfect the mission planners will choke on their metrics. They'll put it in recruitment feeds and brag about how clever they were to approve my plots. His grin stretched wide. And I'll be right there adding inappropriate color commentary to their dashboards. Yes, this overlay was chosen by my extremely brilliant wife, who also looks unspeakably good in a vacuum harness. I laughed so hard I nearly spilled my wine. You're such an ass. But I'm your ass, he shot back. His eyes glinted, catching a streak of neon. And you're contractually obligated to keep me for at least 2 more planetary relocations. Deal. We stayed until the rooftop gnats drove us inside. Dorian put on one of his sleepy jazz playlists. I watched him sway around the kitchen, washing our glasses with slow, meticulous circles, small rituals passed down from his mother. They calmed me more than I'd ever admit. On our last official night, he booked a tiny table by the old Skytram lines. The restaurant was nothing fancy, plastic menus, tables close enough to eavesdrop. but fat candles in narrow glasses threw big golden shapes on the walls, making everything feel hush and private. Dorian ordered with that confident, playful patter that always made servers smile. When he leaned back, he hooked his ankle around mine under the table and gave it a quick squeeze. "You look like you're about to audit their entire supply chain," he teased, dropping his voice so only I could hear. "You nervous or just running 500 models on launch probabilities?" "Little of both." I tried to match his tone, but it still came out thin. He reached across, tracing small circles over my hand. "That's my favorite part of you. The part that can't stop calculating even when the wine's decent and I'm trying very hard to seduce you with urban decay." A real laugh burst out of me. Some of the tightness slipped away. "You're doing an okay job." "Only okay?" His eyes crinkled with mock outrage. "Tomorrow I have to share you with the moon. Might be my last chance to get an outstanding on the seduction front." "You're such an idiot," I murmured, my throat crowded with affection. "And you keep falling for it. Means we're equally doomed." When the bill came, he waved me off with a little flick. "Nope, this one's mine. If it's our last Earth dinner, let me feel like the extravagant provider." With my lunar bond covering half our future oxygen credits, he put a scandalized hand to his chest. "Madam, how dare you cheapen my gallantry with fiscal reality?" Walking home, he laced our fingers so tight my knuckles nearly clicked. He swung our hands once, twice, testing the hinge. "To us," he whispered close to my ear, "building something they'll only ever watch on feeds, wishing they were brave enough to try." His smile was soft, a little incredulous, like he couldn't quite believe we were the ones doing it. I stopped under the buzzing tram cables and pulled him into a kiss. The faint, electric hum traveled up my spine and settled deep in my chest. When we finally pulled back, I kept my hand on his cheek. "I'm glad it's us." "Always us," he said. For that fragile moment, I believed it completely. My whole foolish, brilliant, terrified heart. The shuttle terminal sprawled out like a cathedral to human audacity. It was cavernous and bright, arching glass panels scattering sunlight over polished floors in restless, pale bands. People's footsteps softened to a hush, like we were all tiptoeing around something sacred. We stepped inside together, hands still linked. My heart fluttered tight against my ribs. Dorian squeezed my fingers once, like he felt it too. He didn't say anything, just brushed his thumb over my knuckles in that small, absent way that always calmed me. Families clustered under departure boards, where teal lines of text scrolled like silent prayers. I caught little girl sobbing into her mother's waist, clutching a battered stuffed shark. Two men leaned against a vending unit, clinking thermos caps, laughing too loudly about showing Martian investors a real lunar margin. Nearby, a woman FaceTimed an elderly parent, her voice breaking on each promise to send vids every week. It was too much life in one place, all of it on the verge of uprooting. My breath started catching at strange angles. Dorian must have seen it. He didn't joke. He just let go of my hand and wrapped his arm around my shoulders, tucking me into his chest so my cheek rested over his heartbeat. It thumped steady under my ear, a quiet promise we were still here together. We found a bench beneath a soaring arch of glass. Sunlight poured through, catching the fine strands in Dorian's hair until it looked like molten copper. He sprawled back, wrist pad in his lap, eyes flickering over weather feeds. Tiny data lines danced in his pupils. What's caught you? I tried to sound calm, though my mind was already running private orbits of fear. He glanced up with a crooked half-smile. Landing forecast on Crescent Ridge. Cold and clear. His tone was easy, almost teasing, but I caught how long he'd lingered on the numbers, like he needed them stable so badly he could will it true. Cold and clear is good. I laid my hand on his knee. It itched to fidget with my tablet, but I forced it still. Perfect for your boots to be the first to mess up the powder. Then I'll follow, and you'll complain I ruined your pristine scan zone. That's right. He corrupted my regolith overlays. Whole settlement will laugh. He huffed, shoulders relaxing a fraction. Worth it, I'll just tell them my wife was so brilliant she made even my footprints look intentional. I leaned forward and kissed his cheek. His skin was warm, faintly rough with stubble. He tilted his head so our temples pressed, eyes closing for a breath. Nearby, a boarding call chimed. A family stood in a rush, half laughing, half crying. The little girl with the shark gave a tiny brave wave to someone left behind, tears bright on her cheeks. I watched until they vanished. Then I sank back against the bench, exhaled slow, tasted the metallic bite of terminal air. You okay? Dorian's voice was low and careful. Yeah, just cataloging. His mouth twitched. You and your cataloging. What am I right now? Slightly anxious, but devastatingly handsome spouse on a standard deviation of .04? More like dangerously sentimental with an upper bound of infuriating charm. He barked a surprised laugh that turned a few heads. Fair, pretty tight confidence interval. Think I'll still pass my final boarding metrics? I threaded our fingers again, sliding cold knuckles into the warm spaces. You'll pass anything if you keep looking at me like that. His eyes softened, lines deepening at the corners. Like you're the last safe harbor in the system? Yeah, I whispered. Exactly like that. We sat there under the shifting light, breathing in sync, clinging to the illusion that all our branching futures still pointed the same way. When they finally called our names, my stomach jumped like I'd missed a step on a ladder. Dorian tapped his wrist pad, stood, and flashed me a lopsided grin. Moment of truth. Let's see if the cosmos appreciates your neurotic tea habits and my questionable gym attendance. He gave a tiny roll of his shoulder. I rose too quickly, nearly knocking my bag off the bench. He steadied it, his hand brushing my arm in a way that grounded me better than any pressure lock. A pink-haired nurse met us at intake. Her braids were clipped with tiny holographic beads that rippled soft color. She scanned our IDs with a practiced flick and smiled wide. You're our couple from NA East, Elara and Dorian Hale. Welcome to pre-clearance. Most folks are more nervous than they admit, even the ones making bad jokes the whole way through. Dorian put a hand to his chest, eyes wide. You wound me. I'm a beacon of composure. Her grin turned conspiratorial. Sure, you'd be surprised how many beacons faint dead away in front of these scanners. A laugh slipped out of me, quick and breathy. She guided us through a polymer arch into segmented pods, each labeled with floating codes like oxysat and diffusion. Inside, the air was cool, faintly antiseptic and mint. My heart was already racing. I tried to map imaginary regression lines on the floor tiles to keep it from bolting. All right, Mrs. Hale, we'll start with you. Class B long-haul metrics, micro-vessel oxygenation, Cardiac thresholds, quick neurovectoring. She wiggled a slim scanner. Tickles more than it hurts. Promising pitch, I muttered, bracing. She hummed while sweeping it over my chest, pausing at my collarbones, circling my temples. Each pulse felt like a tiny warm spark. Dorian watched from outside, arms folded, mouth curved up in something almost proud. Perfect, she said finally, tapping results into her slate. Honestly, you're a poster child for Class B. Boring is my favorite compliment. I flexed my hands to release the half moons pressed into my palms. When she motioned to Dorian, he waggled his eyebrows. Time me, but I clear faster. Mild narcissism does wonders for circulation. Oh, God, I groaned, hiding my face. The nurse laughed. In you go, champion. He swaggered in like he was crashing a party. I leaned against the wall, listening to their muffled voices, her quick laugh at some nonsense of his. My chest loosened a little, everything still felt ordinary. Comfortingly, beautifully ordinary. A few minutes passed. I let my eyes close, counting slow breaths. When I peeked again, I caught his silhouette through the frosted divider. Arms lifted slightly, head tipped like he was studying the geometry of the process even now. Then another voice slipped in, low and clipped, that careful corporate style that sounded half bored, half predatory. My pulse jumped. I craned my neck, saw shadows of another tech pointing at a data stream. The nurse's shoulders stiffened. Probably nothing. A calibration drift. These scanners processed hundreds of baselines daily. Still, a cold bloom opened in my chest. I pushed off the wall without meaning to, closer to the pod. The laughter had stopped. Moments later, the nurse stepped out. Her smile was thinner, shoulders tight under her smock. Almost done. Just need to rerun a couple vectors, purely for clarity. Dorian poked his head around the divider, eyes bright, grin wide. They're dazzled by my unparalleled cardio. Or maybe the devastating charm metrics. I warned them not to set the bar too high. The words were playful, but I caught the micro-hitch in his breath. He was performing too hard, for me or for himself. Don't let them put you in a special vanity cohort, I managed. I'd have to pretend not to know you on the shuttle. That pulled a short, genuine laugh. His shoulders dropped a fraction. He blew me a ridiculous little kiss before vanishing back inside. I stayed pinned outside the doorway, tablet clutched tight to my chest, willing the next data lines to be exactly as boring as mine. Long minutes stretched, syrupy and tense, my back pressed against cool polymer. I watched the nurse's silhouette move, scanning, nodding. Dorian stood more relaxed now, hands on hips, foot cocked like he was sharing an offhand joke. Then a sharper slate uniform arrived. Everything about his gait was smooth, unhurried, confident in the way of people who never had to worry about fine print gutting their future. He didn't glance at me, just dipped his head to the nurse, spoke low. Her shoulders twitched. She turned her slate and he leaned in, tapping a line. My throat went dry. Probably insurance or random QC. Still, I couldn't shake the cold bite. A small laugh from Dorian drifted out, but it was thin, stretched tight over something brittle. I couldn't see his face, only how he'd straightened, one hand on the scan pod wall like he needed it to stay anchored. The suited man murmured something else. The nurse ducked out, brushing past me with a faint crease in her brow. I tried to catch her eye, but she didn't slow. My stomach pitched. I edged closer, peered around the divider. Dorian looked back, eyes sparking with forced humor. Hey, apparently I get bonus rounds. They want more samples. Guess my stellar arteries are too fascinating. I managed a laugh that scraped on the way up. Leave it to you to turn a 5-minute test into a full market report. He winked, smile tugging too tight. Don't wander off. Need my favorite analyst here to make sure they don't swap me for a shinier model. Yeah, because there's a warehouse full of you. The words felt heavy. Finally, the suited man turned and met my eyes. Blank in that polished way designed to betray nothing. He gave a polite nod, then gestured Dorian deeper inside. I stepped back, nearly bumping a service drone. My tablet buzzed with an irrelevant Crescent Ridge hydro update. I swiped it off so hard my thumb stung. Time slowed to thick molasses. Each person in pale uniform made my heart jump, bracing for bad news on a clipboard. When Dorian finally emerged, my relief was so sharp it hurt. But he was alone, mouth pulled into a strained calm, a tiny muscle ticking in his jaw. I moved into his space. He let out a long, shaky exhale and pressed his forehead to mine. His skin was warm, a little clammy. I felt the breath move in his chest like he was taking something final. They're just double-checking some cardio readout pinged outside baseline, probably because I haven't slept in a week. You're fine, right? I searched his eyes, hoping to catch past the careful levity. His gaze darted left, then settled on me, softer, graver. Yeah, course I am. Bureaucrats chasing ghosts. His thumb traced over my knuckles again, almost enough to soothe me. Down the hall, a sharper navy cut moved closer. Rajesh Patel, the contract manager who had walked us through bond paperwork half a year ago. Same expression as always, polite and slightly removed, like he lived 3 steps beyond anything human. Dorian's shoulders twitched. His hand clamped tighter around mine. The floor felt like it tilted, a wrongness that had nothing to do with gravity. Rajesh stopped with a tight little nod. Mr. and Mrs. Hale, could I borrow you for a moment? Just a few clarifications before final boarding. My heart tripped, then slammed into a steady hammer. Dorian's thumb still swept that slow circuit, trying to pace us both. We followed Rajesh down a quieter annex. The darker polymer floor swallowed our footsteps. A viewport showed drones crawling over shuttle hulls like lazy silver insects. Beyond them, the sky bruised toward violet. Dorian's hand spasmed every few seconds, recalibrating. His smile was gone. Only his jaw worked, pulsing tight. Rajesh stopped at a recessed console. Its glow washed his face a sickly green. He tapped a few commands, angled the screen for us. These recalibrations happen. It's why we stagger launches. Mrs. Hale, your contract was the key. Class B prime, near ideal metrics. That's why your bond was accelerated. My chest turned to stone. And Dorian? My voice was painfully thin. Rajesh's eyes flicked off mine. Mr. Hale flagged a mild arrhythmic variance. Could mean nothing. Could be an early predisposition that wouldn't manifest on Earth, but under reduced gravity. He drew a careful breath. The settlement cannot assume that liability without full cardiac certification. Dorian's mouth twisted into a too bright grin. So what? More scans, we grab a later shuttle, pay a delay fee? Rajesh sighed, tapped the console. New amortization tables unfolded, neat teal columns biting deep. Any delay triggers full bond recalculation. You'd move from pre-cert incentives into open market brackets. With current volatility, that means your interest slope quadruples. Even with secondary sponsors, it would be ruinous. I couldn't stop staring. So neat, so lethal. Dorian swore under his breath, thumb rubbing my wrist, almost frantic. There has to be a workaround. Partial escrow, some hidden floor. Rajesh's expression softened just barely. Under other cycles, maybe, but this one advanced on Mrs. Hale's metrics. Reallocation would breach investor covenants. It's not personal, it's just structure. It's never personal, Dorian rasped. His voice cracked. He scrubbed a hand over his mouth, fingers trembling. Rajesh dipped his head. I am truly sorry, but Mrs. Hale's window is now. The bond is hers alone unless you jointly default, which I cannot recommend. The console blinked off with a cheerful chime, almost cruel. Silence spilled in, broken only by faint coolant hums. I couldn't look up. It felt like gravity had shifted, pulling everything off axis. Then Dorian hooked a finger under my chin and nudged my face up. His smile was back, soft and sad around the edges. Hey, same dream, just needs a new step. You'll go ahead, carve something so perfect they'll write orientation briefs about it. I'll finish clearing the cautious bastards and walk right in after you. His voice hitched. I felt it jump through his lips. Dorian. I didn't even have words, just his name. His hands cradled my face, thumbs brushing tears I hadn't realized were there. You'll pick a crater so right they'll weep. I'll show up with smug investors who'll think I'm a genius for marrying the only person who could tame a dead rock. A fragile laugh cracked out of me. He kissed me slow, trembling. I clutched his wrists like I might anchor us outside time. When we pulled apart, Rajesh stood at a polite distance, eyes carefully blank, guarding our last scrap of privacy. Dorian pressed his lips to my forehead and lingered until his breath shook. Go build us something beautiful. I'll be right behind you. I promise my heart felt like it might tear free. But I nodded, because if I spoke, I'd beg, and that would only destroy us both. So I breathed him in one last time, memorized the warm spice of his skin, the tremor in his chest. Then I turned and followed Rajesh, each step like it was pulling out stitches that once held me whole. Behind me, I could feel Dorian's eyes fixed on the exact spot where I had stood, as if by sheer will he could hold it all together. The embark hall was washed in low gold. Passengers drifted like quiet wraiths. Voices hushed under the high arches. Dorian walked beside me, close enough that his knuckles brushed mine. He didn't take my hand. Maybe he was afraid that if he did, he wouldn't let go. His jaw kept working, tiny pulses glitching under his temple. At the final checkpoint, a nurse with bright rose braids scanned my slate. Her name tag read, Danya. She smiled, professional but soft, and it nearly undid me. Her scanner beeped against my cuff, sharp and absolute. No room for second thoughts. Vitals clear, bond active, residency tied. You're set for final gravity adaptation. She tapped confirmation. The tiny painted moons on her nails blurred under my eyes. Dorian ran his thumb along my jaw. The touch was slow, almost reverent. His eyes were glassy, mouth pulled into a trembling line that tried and failed to be a smile. He dropped his forehead to mine. His breath hitched so hard it shuddered through my whole chest. Don't look so scared, he whispered, wrecked. This is just a new threshold. You've always crossed them first. I tried to answer, but nothing came. So I kissed him, soft and searching, tasting salt and regret. When I pulled back, he leaned like he might chase me forever. I'll find the best crater on that miserable rock, I managed. Line up coordinates so tight your investor friends will drool. He let out a broken laugh and squeezed my hands until my bones complained. That's my genius star watcher. A final chime swept through the hall. It sounded delicate and cruel. Rajesh waited by the scanner, composed. I hated him for standing so easily in the doorway of every future I had ever built with Dorian. Dorian pressed one last hard kiss to my temple, lingered, then pulled away so slowly it felt like tearing cloth. Go build it. I'll be there before you've even settled in. We both knew neither of us fully believed it. My legs carried me toward the scanner. Its gentle glow swept over me, confirming biosignature, contract, total commitment. A single green line appeared overhead. Elara Hale, Class B Prime, cleared. The scanner chirped, tiny and triumphant. Somewhere inside, something brittle cracked. I turned back. Dorian stood exactly where I left him, hands jammed in his pockets, shoulders locked. Sunlight caught the brushed metal of the watch I had given him last year. He lifted a hand and gave me a crooked wave so painfully him it shattered what composure I had left. I tried to smile, raised my hand. It collapsed halfway. Then I stepped backward through the scanner. Light spilled around me, swallowing the last true image of him. Inside the embark tube, the walls closed soft and seamless, muting everything to a hush. I pressed my palm to the transparent polymer, straining for one more glimpse. But Dorian was already blurred, dissolved into copper and shadow. My tablet chimed with new local contracts and onboarding packets. I couldn't read a single word. My breath fogged the visor. I counted each inhale like lifelines. When the shuttle finally rose, weight left my feet in a slow, terrible bloom. Tears punched from my eyes. Through the narrow view glass, Earth fell away, bright and oblivious. I pressed my forehead to the glass and whispered so low even the mic might have missed it. If this is the future I picked for us, I swear it won't break me before it breaks him. Outside, the stars were already blooming, cold, careless. Luna waited ahead, cratered, silent, patient for us to make our reckless mark.